one big difference between people who get their skin into the game versus those who don't? You'd be surprised, but the answer isn't good design. It's actually... Today, I'm giving y'all the most extensive guide to making a CS2 skin. And don't worry, I'll be answering that pick me question at the end of this video. But first, you gotta know how to make a fire design, right? Because I'm an artist first and foremost, this video will be catered more towards fellow artists. But don't worry if you have no background in art, because us artists are not the smartest people, and I will be adding design tips in this video to help you. You should be okay. On top of that, all of the important topics you might want to revisit will be timestamped in the pinned comment. Let's get started, shall we? For those of you who don't know what 3D texturing is, it's pretty much using 2D images thrown onto a 3D plane. That's all we're doing. Because this process is pretty easy, you can actually use some pretty rudimentary software and you won't have a problem. So for this tutorial, I'm using my iPad and Procreate as well as Photoshop. But you don't have to use Photoshop, you can use Krita or GIMP, something free, something that you can make a TGA file. But also you might want to download my project package that I made because it has some files that you might want to use that'll save and cut time. If you aren't going to use my project package, you instead want to download Blender, which is free, and the CS2 materials. Now the first thing we need to go over is that there are 3 different weapon categories: pistols, mid-tier, and rifles. The more popular that weapon is, the more submissions there are for skins for that weapon. So you'll be in more competition. Now that you picked your weapon that you are going to use, you can either skip this part, or if you didn't download my project package, we are going to have to convert our model from 2K to 4K. This is Photoshop that I opened up. So the first thing we need to do is open up a new file. And we're gonna do 4096 by 4096 pixels at 300 dpi, create. Now I recommend either doing some art or some kind of gradient, but I made this for mine, which works just fine, and you're just gonna export it. And you wanna save it as a PNG. Okay, so now we're gonna open up Blender, and I'm going to go general, and we're just gonna get rid of this box here. And we're gonna go file, import, and we're gonna do OBJ with font. Wherever you saved your CS2 materials, you're gonna just go find them. And then you just load it in. And now we're gonna drag this up here. Now that you've dragged it up, you're just gonna come down to shader editor, and then you're gonna press new. And we're gonna right click, add texture, image texture. Then drag it over here. And we're gonna open the texture that we just made. Then once you have this, you're just gonna drag the color to the base color, and you're gonna come up here and press this button here, and then your texture shows up. And now you're just gonna export. So file, export, and you wanna export it as universal scene description. And then you wanna come down here and change the C to a Z. And then you're just gonna hit export USD. And then now you're gonna open up your drive or some sort of file sharing thing, and you're just gonna drag in your map into whatever. Okay, so now that you have your USDZ file in your Google Drive, you're gonna open up your Google Drive on your iPad, and you're gonna save it into your files. Now, when you open up Procreate, you're just gonna take the USDZ file and just drag it over to C+, and then drop it. And now it will import. And then once it's imported, you can just open it back up, and here it is. And now the model is 4K. For my sketch, I do not like to design on the actual 3D model, so instead I'm going to open up Adobe Fresco, but you can still use Procreate. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna load in a screenshot of your model. I have all the weapons as transparent PNGs in my project package if you want to use that instead of doing a screenshot and making it yourself. Now before we get right into designing, let me show you some design strategies that will give your skin a leg up compared to the other submissions. Starting off with one of the easiest design strategies, Unity. This can be described as something that wraps up the design like it's a birthday present. On a CS2 skin, this could look like an overall theme to a design, or it could be a monochromatic color scheme, or maybe a singular color that ties everything together. The next is movement, and it's pretty simple to understand since we are designing on the CS2 weapon. But pretty much it's a flow of a design. For my first skin that I designed, I did a flow that was literally the essence of the entire design. This next design strategy is probably the most important in my opinion, so pay attention. It's called big, medium, small, or the 60-40-20 rule, or an even more simplistic version, the 80-20 rule. Pretty much you want to divide your design up between having different elements taking up the design. This could look something like you have a big illustration that you threw on, and then you have medium-sized elements that take up less space and then smaller details. You can also use this rule for colors, like 60% of the design is a dark color and 40% is this brighter color, and then 20% is a pop of an accent color like metallic or something. Now the simplest version is the 80-20 rule, 80% being one thing or color and 20% being another. This next design strategy is contrast, which is pretty self-explanatory. Say you have a color on the weapon and then you add a desaturated color to show the contrast, or you could do contrast in the term of values, a lighter part of the design versus a darker part. This contrast can be used as a focal point in a design. And finally, the last design strategy that most people often forget, and that's called white space. What I mean is giving your design some areas to breathe versus areas of complexity. If your design is all busy, it's a good idea to add some areas of rest or white space. Now that you have some basics of good design, let's get to sketching our skin. Now you're just gonna sketch on top and figure out what exactly you want to do for the skin design. Now that you have the sketch done, you want to duplicate the sketch, group it, and then merge it down. And you want to clip that layer on top of your weapon and then go to the blend mode overlay. That way you can see what your sketch will look like overlaid on top of the weapon. If you are happy with this sketch, you need to evaluate whether or not your skin covers the full design or if it's pieces of design that are separated. If you have pieces that are separated, like my first design that I did, you want to render those pieces out fully and then export them as transparent PNGs. Anything that is not a singular art piece and covers the whole entire weapon, they do not need to be polished because you're just going to import the sketch and it's not going to be exact because of projection not being perfect. So we are now just going to open up Procreate. Since we already have some art on top of the skin, I am just going to make a new layer and then drag this white on so that it fills completely. And then we're going to go up to the settings and we are going to add and then insert a photo. And you're going to import all of your images onto your model. And then you're going to come down here to projection and hit bidirectional so that it goes onto the other side. Once you have all your images onto your 3D model, this is the part where you polish everything. So you're just gonna make sure that everything lines up, that all of the details are nice, and anything that looks weird or is off, you're just gonna have to polish it. Keep in mind that you're limited to 12 layers, so if you need more layers, just duplicate the file and then merge layers together so that you can continue working. You want to make sure you keep separate layers for all the different design aspects. Since Procreate doesn't export materials, we're going to make all the materials in our 2D editing software. Now here is a rendering hack that you might find important. So you want to make a new layer and then fill it with white, and then you're going to grab a new color and drag onto the parts where you want the whole thing covered in a singular color or material. Now when you go up to here and toggle the 3D icon and then you toggle on show 2D texture, you can now see the entire UV map. And now you're gonna go to selection and you're gonna hit automatic and you're just gonna select all the areas that are colored. Now you're gonna invert the selection and now you're gonna grab your eraser and erase everything in that selection. Now when you go back into your layers, you can tap on the image of the layer and hit alpha lock so that now you can just paint on this part and not have to worry about messing up or it getting in different areas that you don't want. Now that your design is done, we are going to export. We're going to come up here and hit share, and you're going to scroll down to share textures PNG, and it's going to start exporting. And you want to save to your files. If you have different parts of your design that you would like to put on different materials, you need to export those individually as well. What I like to do is make a duplicate of the entire file, and then I like to go into the 2D UV map so that I can see everything that I'm working with. You want to fill in parts of your design that you want to be a separate material, like say you want one part to be metallic or one part metal. You want to select the parts and just fill it in with a separate color and then leave everything else white. That way when you export it, it's all one solid thing and you can just easily select it. For my skin, I had 5 different textures that I wanted to export. Once you have all these textures saved, you just need the color files imported. Don't even worry about the roughness or the metallic. Those won't help you at all. You're gonna drop your PNG color files into your Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever filing sharing you use. And then you're just gonna download them onto your computer. This is now the part where we do all the final polishing to make our skins look sparkly. So the first thing we need to do is open up Steam. Now that Steam is open, we're gonna go up to library, and then we're gonna go over here to all the games, and you're gonna right click on Counter-Strike, and you're gonna go down to properties. You go to DLC, downloadable content, and you want to make sure that your workshop tools is selected. That way when you close out and you hit play, you can launch your workshop tools here, and then you hit play. You'll just hit launch workshop. Now the workshop is pretty blank, but there are different types of weapon finishes you can use in order to make your skin. Now they have some example ones that you can poke through, but I'm just gonna tell you what all of them are. Yeah, so we're going to ignore solid color and anodize because no one uses either of these two, so just don't even bother. So we're gonna go over the 4 basic weapon finishes, which is hydrographic, spray paint, anodized multicolor, and anodized airbrush. These 4 are what you would use if you're using a pattern design. If you want to make a pattern design, all you gotta do is use a 2D editing software. And what you're gonna do is just have a basic square file, and you are going to make your design, and you want to make sure the pattern works horizontally and vertically. You want to make sure that your design has 3 different layers. So the first thing we're gonna do is make the background black. And then we're gonna merge each one separately with the black. And then you're gonna set each layer to screen. And now you're gonna move over to the channels panel over here. And you're gonna take your paint bucket. I'm gonna hit on this layer. And then I'm going to fill green with this and blue. And now this one is only red. And then you're gonna do the same for the other ones. And now it is all in RGB because that's what you need in the workshop in order to switch all of these colors. And you want to make sure the bottom layer is red, the middle is green, and the top is blue. These each correspond to how the paint is layered onto the skin. And then you're going to export it as a TGA file. Now we come back into the workshop. We're going to do hydrographic, and you see these 4 colors right here. See how it says red channel, green channel, blue channel? These are what is determined on your texture file. And that's why we made each of them separate, because you can change the color based on this color right here. And then you can inspect it. And there we got our texture. You can also decrease the size of your texture, and then the texture will be smaller. And you can change each color in your different channels to change the color on your skin. And then now, see, it's that one part's pink. So for hydrographic and anodized multicolored patterns, you apply them through the UV map, meaning that the pattern will look different per part of the UV map. So the pattern won't line up perfectly with one another. While spray paint and anodized airbrushed are applied with a triplanar mapping. Think of it like you were spray painting the whole weapon. Pretty much hydrographic and anodized multicolored are the same except for what the alpha channel does. For hydrographic, it determines how quickly different parts of your pattern wear, while as anodized multicolored, the alpha channel determines which parts are metallic. Spray paint and anodized airbrush are also the same opposite ways for the alpha channel. For patina weapon finish is pretty much the improved version of anodized multicolored. The difference is that your design wears to the colors you picked for the patina wear and grind. And you can also use normal map and ambient occlusion maps. Custom paint weapon finish, it is pretty much the improved version of hydrographic. The big difference is that you don't have 4 colors to pick from, so you can use whatever colors you want that are on your color file. And you can also use a normal map. The gunsmith weapon finish is a patina and custom paint combined. So you can do the cool metallic stuff while having all the colors you want, and you can use a normal map and alpha map. So if it isn't clear already, the gunsmith is the best weapon finish, in my opinion. We're gonna open up our 2D editing software. We are gonna locate all the files that you just downloaded onto your PC. You're just gonna select them all and then drag them in. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure this color file, you can see it on everything. So we are just going to export file, save a copy, and we're going to drop it down to a Targa TGA file. This is the file type that you need in order for it to work in the CS2 workshop. And then we're just going to save. And then I like to do 32-bit because why not? Now let's hop back into the workshop. So now all we gotta do is pick one of these. So I'm gonna hit gunsmith, and then I'm just gonna hit create. name it something. And then you're going to go up here and select the weapon that you are using. We are going to test the color file that we just exported, but let's locate where our file is. This is where this example pattern is, and I'm gonna go find my color file that I used, and I'm just gonna rename, copy it, and then drag it over. And now that it's here, I'm just gonna come back and then paste what the file's name is called, and then when I hit inspect, now it shows up here. This is wrong, and let me show you how to fix this. Back into the workshop, and you're gonna hit these 3 buttons right here, and this makes your texture place like it's a UV map. And then we're gonna go back to inspect. And now your art should line up. This part right here, this means that this is worn, so your art doesn't show up on this part, which means you need to fix the alpha map. Pretty much an alpha map determines what parts of the gun wear faster than others. So we gotta go back into Procreate and make sure all of those are separated. And then you're just gonna export it and then download it onto your PC. And now we're gonna come back into Photoshop and we're just gonna grab the alpha map and drag it on. So now that we have the alpha map, I'm gonna go up to here, select color range, and we're gonna hit white. And we're gonna come up the channels. We're gonna go down here and add, and now we have an alpha map. Get your brush tool, and then you're gonna come up and drag this all the way to 65. And then we're just gonna fill everything. So for note, black wears the least, white wears the most, and 65 is like a base average. Now that we have this, we're just gonna go back, and then we're just gonna export the same thing again. Okay, now we're gonna open up the workshop, and we are just gonna go back to the file that we had, and we're just gonna drag this one over and replace it. Now when we go back to inspect, now you can see this is what it's supposed to be. Same with some of the other parts. See these metallic parts? You can change the color for these. So you're just gonna go back to the workshop and then pick a different color. So this is the base color, and then this is the tint, and then the wear is what the metal part will wear to, and then this is the grime of that. Let's see what that looks like. Nice. Okay, so now let's go over these different masks that we have here. So first, pearlescent mask. A pearlescent map is a black and white map where white is super color change and black is no color change. Say I want the muscles to change color, I am going to select this. So white changes colors, black doesn't. So we gotta invert this. I'm just gonna lock the layers and just paint on top. And then I'm gonna make a layer underneath, and it's gonna be black because I don't want those parts to change color. And now I'm just gonna export, and then we come back into the workshop. We're gonna check this box, and then we're gonna go to the file location. We're just gonna drag our pearl map into here. And then we're gonna have to come up to this slider right here, which determines how much color changes. Then we're gonna hit inspect. See? And now the muscle part changes color. Okay, now for roughness map. So roughness map is another black and white map, and it determines how shiny parts of the weapon are. The white is not shiny and black is shiny. So let's say I wanted the muscle and bone highlights to be the most shiny. So I'm gonna make these parts black and then everything else not shiny. And then maybe I want the bones to also be a little bit shiny. And then you can decrease the opacity to make parts shinier versus not shinier. And then you're just gonna save it like everything else. And then we're gonna go back into the workshop, and you're gonna toggle on roughness texture. We're gonna locate the file, and then just drag in, change the name, and inspect. And now you see it has some shiny parts. Now let's go over the normal map. So the normal map is special, and it gives the illusion of extra geometry when there isn't any really. And we can make a normal map in Photoshop. So what you want to do is you want to make whatever your images are as black and white. You're going to come up to filter, 3D, and then generate normal map. Perfect. And I'm just going to invert the height because I want these other parts to stick out. And you can change how much detail you want. And then you're just going to export as a TGA file again. And we're going to toggle on the normal map, locate the normal map, and then drag and drop our normal map file, and then inspect. See, there's a little bit more geometry now. You see how some of the parts stick out? That gives more depth to areas of the weapon. And you can heighten this by using an ambient occlusion map. So the ambient occlusion map is another black and white map, and it pretty much gives the basic shading of non-geometry. So white is more light exposure and black is no light exposure. So pretty much for an ambient occlusion map, you just want to take the black and white that you already made and you just want to invert it. So I'm just gonna go down to here and invert, and then just merge down, and then you just want to make a black background. And then if there are parts that you want to make even brighter, you can just mask that off. Okay, and then you just want to export this as another GGA file. Come back to the workshop and check the ambient occlusion map, and then inspect. And then there's even more depth than just the normal map. Now for the last and final map, which is the material mask. So the material mask is another black and white mask, and it helps determine what parts are metallic and what parts are the default gun material. So white is metallic and black is non-metallic. Let's say I wanted the muscles to be metallic. I would just select the muscles that I have, make a new layer, and color these in white, and then make everything else black. Now we go back into the workshop and just toggle on the material mask, drag in your material. See, now all the muscles are metallic. And the cool thing is if you also make the alpha map, the metallic part, like you make the metallic parts wear less. Okay, and then we inspect, it looks the same, but when we do the wear, see, this is the wear, and we drag it down all the way to battle scarred and inspect. The parts that aren't worn are the muscle green parts. Let me pick a different color. Yeah, see, all of the bones are gone, but you still have the red muscle. So you can get like a completely new design just from how much it wears. Now, once you're happy with your skin and all of the cool effects, it's time to submit. But before we submit, we gotta make a thumbnail, some GIFs, and promo images to show off our skin. So the first thing we need to do is get some screenshots. So I'm gonna come up here to scenery, and I'm gonna hit green, because then when I go to inspect, I can see my whole entire skin, and then the background just gets cut out. So how you want to screenshot is you want to hit Command-Shift-S on your keyboard, and you'll get this up here, and then you just want to drag, and then it'll come down here, and then you're just gonna want to save. You want to get images of your full design as well as some cool angles, but most importantly, you want to get some images of your skin in the game. So you're gonna come up to preview. So now that we're in game, you can hit the key F and it will inspect for you. And then you can get some cool lighting to show off your skin. Whatever you want. Sky's the limit. Get it? Now we're gonna record some footage for the skin, and I like to use OBS, but you can use whatever. OBS is free, so I definitely recommend it. And you can get some footage of the skin rotating, maybe like how it glistens or something, whatever you want. And then it'll save to your computer in your videos file, and you can just grab it from there. You also want to get footage of you in game, of you shooting, as well as reloading, which is the R key, as well as inspect animation, which is F key. And with these, you're gonna turn into GIFs. Now that we have all the files, the first thing we're gonna do is make a thumbnail. So I'm gonna go back into Photoshop, and I'm using 3840 by 2160, but I recommend you using 1920 by 1080. But there is a size limit, which is 2 megabytes. Keep that in mind, you might have to rescale. So I'm just gonna import images that we have, and I'm just gonna select all of the green and hit shift to select everything. And then you're just gonna delete the green, and now you've got a transparent doodah, and you could do whatever you want with it. So I made this for my thumbnail. I pretty much took my rifle, and then I made a cool background, and then I did some editing, and then I added a logo. I recommend making a background that kind of matches the theme of your skin. That way it kind of relates. Also, you want to make sure that this is high contrast. See how bright this is? This is red versus blue, which is the opposite. This contrast will be more eye-catching, so people will see this easier. Okay, so now we're gonna make some extra images, and I made these 2 different versions, the different gun angles, and I added a shadow as well as a QR code that has links to everything. And these are to show off different angles of your skin. Next, we're gonna make some GIFs, and you can skip this part if you want because GIFs are not a requirement, but it's recommended. Okay, so I am using Adobe Premiere Pro, and you can use whatever video editing software you want, free, whatever, just as long as it can export a GIF. I already edited out these different clips that I have that I want to turn into GIFs, and so pretty much what I'm gonna do is delete everything else, and then I'm just gonna go File, Export Media, and then I'm just gonna make sure it's animated GIF, and then making the resolution smaller, and then I want to make sure it's the entire source, and then I'm just gonna either send to media encoder or export. And then once you have that, then you'll get a cool GIF like this, and it just repeats. Okay, now that we have all the GIFs, we need to turn them into links so that we can add them to our submission. I personally like to use my portfolio and just set it up on that and then copy paste the links from there. But you can also just use a free GIF converter to a link or something. I don't know, you can find stuff. Now, once you're ready to submit, you can now come up here and hit publish. And it's gonna take you to this dialog box, and you're gonna hit plus. And then I'm gonna upload my, okay. And now for description. So all of the GIFs that you just made here, you're just gonna take whatever site you got them on. And then to get a link, you can just right click, copy image address. I'm using this notepad and then paste it in. And then you just copy your description, paste it in. And then you want to add these brackets, img, and then at the end of the link, you do the same brackets but with a slash, img, brackets, and then do that for all of them. And now your GIFs will show up on the actual submission. And now for visibility, I'm gonna do, you can switch this, so I'm just gonna leave it hidden for now, and I'm gonna do submit. Perfect. So now that it is in the workshop, see, all of my GIFs are here. And then I can go up to add images and videos, and I can upload the files that I wanted to. I'm gonna add a little bit more later, but this is pretty much how you do it. And then when you're ready, you can change visibility to public. Yeah, when you're done, you just press this finalize. And then if there's another person that worked on the skin with you, you just add another user. Remember the question I asked at the beginning of this video? What's the one big difference between people who get their skin in-game versus those who don't? And as I said before, the answer is not good design. Instead, it actually involves the weapon that you pick and the saliency of the skin of the weapon, which determines the weapon's rarity. Now, there are 4 categories of rarity: coverts, classified, restricted, and military. And each category is determined by the weapon's salience. And salience is pretty much how loud or vibrant the weapon is. So the more salient the weapon is, the higher it will be in the rarity tier. When Valve releases a new case, there's a limit to the number of skins and what rarity per case. So each case has 2 coverts, 3 classified, 5 restricted, and 7 military. And if we look at the weapon tier, meaning how popular a weapon is, it has 4 that are S tier, 4 that are A tier, 5 B tier, 1 C tier, and 3 D tier. Whereas if you look at Dreams and Nightmare case, it has 2 that are S tier, 2 A tier, 6 B tier, 4 C tier, and 3 D tier. This means that you have a higher chance of getting your skin into game if you make less salient skin designs that could be classified as restricted or military. Looking at each of the release cases, we notice common patterns as well as what weapons they could be looking to put into the next case. For example, there is always an AK-47 in each case. So when in doubt, make an AK skin. Now that doesn't mean you should just make boring designs because the less salient skins are more likely to get in game. Quite the opposite in fact. If you make a subtle yet iconic design, you have a much better chance than all the super boring plain designs. But you should still design covert skins for weapons that are in higher tiers, because how else are you going to attract attention if you are just making subtle design? Of course, this is all just my speculations based on patterns from previous cases. Because there hasn't been a new case released in over a year, who knows what's gonna happen. But there's some huge errors that you can make when designing your skin, so watch this next video so you don't make the same mistakes.